You wake in the middle of the night, and the feeling is already there. Not a thought yet, just a tightness in the chest, a low hum of unease that has no name. You try to return to sleep, but the body will not settle. The mind begins its work, searching for the reason, scanning yesterday, rehearsing tomorrow, building a case for why this feeling makes sense. And the more you search, the more the feeling grows. This is the mind that cannot rest, not because it lacks skill or discipline, but because it has learned over years to treat every uncomfortable sensation as a problem that thinking can solve. The habit runs deep, deeper than memory. It is woven into the way you meet each moment. Imagine a river that has carved its path through stone over centuries. The water does not choose its direction anymore. It follows the groove that has been worn smooth by repetition. When rain falls, the water rushes exactly where it has always rushed. The channel is so familiar that the river cannot imagine another way. This is what emotional habits are. Patterns worn into the nervous system by repetition. When a certain feeling arises, the mind and body respond in the way they have responded 1,000 times before. Tightness in the chest becomes worry. Worry becomes stories. Stories become more tightness. The loop completes itself so quickly you rarely see the beginning. You might notice this most clearly in small moments. Someone speaks to you in a certain tone, and before they finish their sentence, your shoulders have already lifted. Your jaw has set. The body has prepared for conflict, even though no conflict has been named. Or you receive a message and do not open it. The anticipation of bad news feels safer than knowing. So you wait. And the waiting becomes its own discomfort. But it is a familiar discomfort, one you know how to carry. These responses are not wrong. They are not failures of character. They are simply what the system has learned. At some point, tightening the shoulders helped. Avoiding the message helped. The mind registered these actions as useful and stored them. Now they arise automatically, like the river following its channel, whether they serve you or not. Mindfulness does not begin by trying to change these patterns. It begins by noticing them. Not from above, as if you were a judge reviewing evidence, but from inside the experience itself, feeling the tightness as it forms, noticing the first flicker of a story before it becomes a narrative, sensing the pull to avoid, to fix, to explain. This noticing is not easy. The habits move fast. By the time you recognize what is happening, the loop is often closed. The feeling has become a mood. The mood has colored the whole day. But even this recognition, arriving late, is useful. It teaches you the shape of the pattern, the texture of it, how it begins and where it leads. You can start very simply, sitting quietly or lying down, bringing attention to the breath, not controlling it, just feeling it. The coolness at the nostrils, the rise of the chest, the small pause before the exhale begins. And then, without forcing anything, noticing what else is present. Is there tension in the belly? A flutter near the heart? A thought circling like a bird that will not land? When you find something, you do not need to fix it. You do not need to understand why it is there or what it means. You only need to feel it. To let your attention rest with it, the way you might rest your hand on the shoulder of someone who is afraid. Steady, warm, not pulling away. This is where the river begins to sense that another path is possible. Not because you have dug a new channel with effort and force, but because you have stopped adding speed to the water. You have stopped pushing. And in that stopping, the river slows. It spreads. It touches the banks it has ignored for years. The habits do not vanish. They will arise again tomorrow and the day after. But something begins to shift. A small space opens between the feeling and the reaction. Not every time, not reliably, but enough that you start to notice. The tightness comes, and you feel it without immediately needing to know why. The worry arises, and you see it as worry, not as truth. The old channel is still there, but the water does not rush through it quite so blindly. This is not a quick transformation. It asks for patience, for returning again and again to the simple act of noticing breath, body, sensation, thought. The quiet practice of meeting what is here without needing it to be different. And in that meeting, the patterns that have held you begin, slowly, to loosen their grip. You throw a stone into still water. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, the surface remains unchanged. Then the ripples begin. They move outward in widening circles, and by the time you notice them, the stone is already gone. This is how emotion moves through you. Something happens, a word is spoken, a door closes, a message arrives, and before you have registered what you feel, your body has already begun to respond. Your chest tightens, your jaw sets, your breath shortens. The feeling is already in motion, spreading through you like those ripples, and you are catching up to something that has already started. Most of the time, you meet your emotions only after they have traveled. You notice anger when your voice has already risen. You recognize sadness when tears are near. You feel anxiety when your thoughts are already spinning. You arrive late to your own experience, and by then the reaction is underway. The Buddha spoke of a space between stimulus and response. In that space, he said, is our freedom. But to most of us, that space is invisible. We do not see it because we have never looked for it. We have been taught to name our feelings, to understand them, to manage them, but not to catch them at the very beginning, in the first instant they arrive. There is a moment before the ripples spread. It is brief, it is subtle, but it is there. You can learn to notice it. This is not about stopping your feelings. It is not about controlling what arises or deciding what you should feel. It is about arriving earlier. It is about being present at the beginning of the movement, not just at the end. When you begin to pay attention, you start to notice something strange. Feelings do not arrive as words, they arrive as sensations, a tightness, a warmth, a heaviness, a flutter, a pulling inward or a pressing outward. The body knows before the mind names. If you can meet the feeling in the body before you name it, something shifts. You are no longer inside the reaction. You are with it, but not carried by it. You feel the tightness in your chest, but you have not yet called it anger. You notice the flutter in your stomach, but you have not yet called it fear. In that brief gap, there is space. And in that space, the automatic response loses some of its grip. This is not easy. The habit of reacting is old. It has been running for years, maybe for your whole life. A certain tone of voice triggers defensiveness. A certain kind of silence triggers worry. A certain look triggers shame. These patterns are deep. They are fast. They feel like truth, but they are not truth. They are habits. And habits can be seen. You do not need to change them right away. You do not need to fix anything. You only need to notice. When the stone hits the water, can you feel the first ripple before it spreads? Can you sense the moment the body begins to respond before the story takes over? Sit quietly for a moment. Let your attention rest in your body. Notice your breath. Notice the weight of your body where it meets the chair or the floor. Now bring to mind something small that irritated you recently, not something large, just a minor annoyance, a delay, a comment, a small inconvenience. As you recall it, notice what happens in your body. Do not think about it. Do not analyze it. Just feel. Where does the sensation begin? Is there a tightness, a heat, a pulling, a sinking? Stay with the sensation itself. Do not name it yet. Just feel the shape of it, the texture, the location. This is the practice. To arrive at the feeling before the label, to meet the ripple before it becomes a wave. When you do this, you begin to see how much of your emotional life is automatic. You see how quickly you move from sensation to story. You see how a tightness in the chest becomes, I'm angry, and then, they shouldn't have said that. And then, I need to respond. And then you are already speaking, already reacting, already caught in the old pattern. But if you catch the tightness before it becomes anger, something else is possible. You feel it, you know it is there, but you have not yet become it. You are aware of the feeling, but you are not inside it. You are in the space the Buddha spoke of, and in that space you can choose. Not always, not perfectly, but sometimes, and sometimes is enough. This is how mindfulness changes emotional habits, not by force, not by replacement, but by arriving earlier, by seeing the stone hit the water, by feeling the first ripple before it spreads across the entire surface of your life. You touch a hot pan and the hand pulls back. That part is clean. The body knows what to do. But then something else begins. The mind arrives with its explanations. The pan was in the wrong place. Someone should have warned you. You should have been more careful. Now the whole kitchen feels hostile and the evening is ruined. The sensation in your hand is still there, but you are no longer with it. You are with the story about the pan. This is what happens with emotion. The feeling arises, the chest tightens, or the belly drops, or heat moves up through the throat. That is the raw fact. But we rarely stay there. We jump immediately to what it means, why it happened, who is responsible, what it says about us. The sensation becomes a launching point for interpretation, and interpretation becomes a world we live inside. The teaching says the feeling is not the problem. The clinging to the feeling is the problem. This does not mean feelings are trivial. They are real. They move through the body with force. But clinging is what turns a passing sensation into a fixed condition. Clinging is when we grab the feeling and say, "This is who I am now. This is what my life is. This will not change." You can feel this in the body. When anger arises, there is heat, tightness, a kind of gathering in the chest or jaw. If you stay with that, it has a shape, it moves, it intensifies and fades. But if you move into the story, what they said, what you should have said, what this means about them or you, the sensation becomes fuel. The story feeds the feeling, and the feeling feeds the story. You are no longer experiencing anger. You are building a case. The same is true for sadness or fear or shame. The body offers a sensation. The mind offers a narrative. And we mistake the narrative for the truth of the moment. We think we are feeling sad when really we are thinking about sadness, remembering sadness, predicting sadness. The sensation itself is briefer and simpler than we imagine. This is where practice begins. When an emotion arises, place attention on the chest or the belly, not to fix anything, not to make it go away. Just to feel the sensation without words. The chest might be tight, there might be pressure or hollowness or a kind of buzzing. The belly might be clenched or soft or trembling. You are not naming the emotion, you are not asking why, you are just meeting the raw sensation as it is. This is harder than it sounds. The mind wants to narrate, it wants to solve. It wants to know what this feeling means and what to do about it. But meaning-making is not the same as feeling. When you touch the hot pan, the hand does not need a story to pull back. The body responds. The sensation is complete in itself. Emotions are the same. They arise, they move, they fade. The clinging happens when we turn away from the sensation and toward the explanation. So you return to the chest, to the belly. You feel the tightness or the heat or the sinking. You do not try to relax it, you do not try to understand it, you just allow it to be felt. This is not suppression. Suppression is pushing the feeling away. This is the opposite. This is turning toward the feeling so directly that there is no room for the story. What you will notice is that the sensation changes, not because you are trying to change it, but because sensations are always changing. They pulse, they shift. They soften or sharpen or dissolve. When you are in the story, the emotion feels solid. It feels like a fact about you. But when you are with the sensation, you see that it is more like weather. It has texture and movement. It is not you. It is something moving through you. Sometimes the sensation is intense. The chest might feel like it is being crushed. The belly might feel like it is falling. This is when the pull toward the story is strongest. The mind says, "This is too much. I need to know why. I need to fix this." But the practice is the same. Feel the crushing. Feel the falling. Let it be as strong as it is. The sensation will not harm you. It is the resistance to the sensation that creates suffering. You begin to see that craving is not just wanting pleasant things. Craving is also wanting the unpleasant thing to be different, wanting the tightness to loosen, wanting the heat to cool, wanting the story to make sense. All of that is clinging. The feeling itself is just a feeling. The clinging is what makes it a problem. So you sit with the sensation. You feel the pressure in the chest, the heat in the throat, the trembling in the belly. You do not name it anger or fear or grief. You just feel the shape of it, the temperature, the density, and slowly the need for a story begins to quiet. The sensation is enough. It does not need to be explained. It does not need to be fixed. It is just what is happening right now in this body. You stub your toe on the corner of the table. The pain is sharp, immediate, real. Your body responds before thought arrives. Then something else happens. You turn toward the table with heat in your chest. You call it stupid. You replay the moment. You imagine how you could have avoided it. You feel the anger build, and now you are suffering twice. Once from the impact, once from everything that follows. The Buddha spoke of two arrows. The first arrow is the event itself, the pain, the loss, the disappointment. It lands without asking permission. The second arrow is the one we shoot at ourselves, the blame, the resistance, the story we build around what happened. The first arrow is inevitable. The second is optional. But we rarely see the difference. This is not about positive thinking. It is not about pretending the first arrow does not hurt. The toe throbs. The pain is real. But when you spend the next hour angry at the table, replaying the moment, tightening around the memory, you are no longer responding to the stubbed toe. You are responding to your own reaction. The event has passed. The suffering continues because you are feeding it. Aversion does this. It takes a moment of discomfort and stretches it across time. The mind says, "This should not have happened." It resists what is already done. And in that resistance, a new layer of pain is born. You can feel it in the body. The jaw tightens, the breath shortens, the shoulders rise. This is not the toe anymore. This is the mind at war with reality. Most of our suffering lives in this second arrow. Someone speaks harshly to you. The words land, they sting. That is the first arrow. Then you spend the evening replaying the conversation. You imagine what you should have said. You build a case for why they were wrong. You feel the hurt again and again, each time sharper, because now it is mixed with shame, with anger, with the need to be right. The original moment lasted seconds. The suffering you create around it lasts hours, sometimes days. Mindfulness does not remove the first arrow. It cannot. Life includes pain. Bodies age. Relationships end. Plans fail. The practice is not to avoid these truths. The practice is to see clearly when you pick up the second arrow and aim it at yourself. When you are upset, there is a question you can ask quietly, without pressure. Which part is the event, and which part is my reaction to the event? Not to judge either one, not to fix anything, just to see. The question itself creates a small space. In that space, something loosens. You are stuck in traffic. The first arrow is the delay. The second arrow is the tightness in your chest, the cursing, the mental argument with every other driver on the road. When you ask the question, you begin to notice. The traffic has not changed. Your body has. Your thoughts have. The event is neutral. The suffering is something you are doing. This is not easy to see at first. The reaction feels like part of the event. When someone criticizes you, the hurt and the story about the hurt arrive together. They feel like one thing. But if you bring attention to the moment, you start to notice a gap. The words were spoken. That happened. Then there is a flicker, a turning, and suddenly you are inside a story about what those words mean about you, about them, about everything. That flicker is where the second arrow is drawn. You do not have to stop the reaction. You do not have to be calm or wise or anything other than what you are. You only have to see it. Oh, this is the event. And this tightness, this looping thought, this is my reaction. The seeing itself is enough. Not every time, not perfectly, but sometimes in one moment the arrow falls from your hand before you release it. The table did not make you angry. The toe hurt. And then you made a choice, though it did not feel like a choice. The anger felt automatic, justified, necessary. But when you look closely, you see that the anger is optional. The pain was not. This is the insight that changes emotional habits, not by force, not by trying to feel differently, but by seeing clearly, again and again, which suffering is inevitable and which suffering you are creating. You feel anger rising, and immediately you're inside it, becoming it, believing every word it says. Or sadness arrives, and within seconds you've wrapped yourself around it so tightly there's no room left to breathe. This happens because we've never been taught to pause. We meet emotion the way we meet everything else, by doing something about it, by moving toward it or pushing it away, by explaining it or fixing it or feeding it until it grows large enough to fill the room. But emotions are not as solid as they feel. Watch a cloud move through open sky. It appears dense, shaped, almost permanent as it drifts overhead. But if you were inside that cloud, you'd find only mist, droplets suspended in air, nothing you could hold. The solidity exists only from a distance, only when you're not paying attention to what a cloud actually is. Feelings are the same. They seem fixed because we never let them breathe. We never create the conditions where they can show us their true nature, which is movement, which is change, which is arising and passing like everything else that moves through awareness. The Zen instruction is almost absurdly simple. Sit with it. Don't add anything. Don't take anything away, not as a technique to make the feeling go away, not as a strategy to feel better, faster, just as an honest encounter with what's actually here. When you sit with a strong feeling without adding to it, you stop feeding it your storylines. You stop rehearsing what you'll say, stop replaying what was said, stop building the case for why you're right to feel this way. All of that is addition. All of that turns a passing weather system into a permanent climate. And when you sit without taking anything away, you stop the other move we make, the one where we shove the feeling down, distract ourselves, numb out, pretend we're fine. You stop abandoning yourself. You stop treating your own experience like something that shouldn't be happening. What's left is just the feeling itself, without your commentary, without your resistance. This is where the habit begins to change. You spent years meeting emotions the same way. Anger arrives and you clench. Sadness arrives and you collapse. Anxiety arrives and you spin. These responses are so fast, they feel like part of the emotion itself, but they're not. They're what you do when the emotion comes. They're the habit layered on top of the actual experience. If you can sit still for just 3 breaths when a strong feeling comes, doing absolutely nothing, you create a gap. Not a gap that removes the feeling, but a gap that lets you see it as separate from your reaction to it. The feeling is one thing, what you do with it is another. 3 breaths is not much, but it's enough to interrupt the automation. The first breath, you might still be tangled up, still believing the feeling is you. The second breath, there's a flicker of space, a sense that something is watching this happen. The third breath, the cloud is still there, but you're no longer inside it. You're the sky it's passing through. You don't have to be good at this. You don't have to achieve some calm state. You're just sitting still while something moves. That's all. And if you do this enough times, the habit starts to loosen. Not because you've controlled the emotion or transcended it, but because you stopped making it more solid than it is. You stopped adding your weight to it. Feelings will still come. Anger will still rise. Sadness will still arrive uninvited. But they'll move differently when you're not gripping them, not running from them, not turning them into a story about who you are or what your life means. They'll move the way clouds move, through open space, without resistance, without anything to hold them in place. This is the beginning of freedom. Not freedom from feeling, but freedom within it. The emotion comes and you're still here, still breathing, still aware. It doesn't sweep you away because you've learned to let it pass through. You practice this in small moments, a flash of irritation while waiting in line, a wave of sadness for no clear reason, a tightness in the chest when you check your phone. These are the training grounds. These are where you learn that you can sit still, that you can let something be exactly as it is without doing anything about it. And slowly, over time, the pattern shifts. The emotions don't feel so large. They don't last as long. They don't convince you so easily that they're the whole truth of this moment. Because you've seen them as clouds now. You've watched them form and dissolve. You've felt them pass through the open sky of your awareness without leaving a trace. There is a way the body knows something is wrong before the mind catches up. A tightness in the chest, a pulling in the throat, a hardness in the belly that arrives the moment someone speaks your name in a certain tone, or the phone rings at the wrong hour, or you remember something you said that cannot be unsaid. The instinct is immediate. The body closes around the feeling like a fist closing around sand. You think if you hold tight enough, you can control what happens next. You think if you clench hard enough, the discomfort will stay contained, manageable, small. But sand does not work that way. The tighter the grip, the faster it slips through the fingers. What remains is only the ache of holding. This is aversion. Not the simple turning away from pain, but the whole body effort to make unpleasant experience stop existing. It feels like protection. It feels like strength. But watch what actually happens in the moment of clenching. The original discomfort, whatever it was, becomes wrapped in a second layer of tension. Now you are not just feeling the difficult thing, you are feeling your own resistance to it, and that resistance has texture and weight. It has a location in the body. It takes up space. The teaching is plain. What you resist persists. What you allow passes through. This is not philosophy. This is something you can test in your own experience, in your own body, in the next 5 minutes if you wish. Find a small discomfort. A physical one is easiest at first. The stiffness in your lower back, the itch on your ankle, the pressure behind your eyes. Notice what the mind does. It wants the sensation gone. It narrows attention around the problem and begins to push. Now notice what the body does in response to that mental push. Somewhere there is tightening. The jaw sets, the shoulders lift, the breath becomes shallow. This tightening is not the original discomfort. This is the body's attempt to brace against what is already here. And this bracing, this clenching, keeps the discomfort alive. It gives the unpleasant feeling something to press against, something to stay for. You can feel this with emotions just as clearly. A moment of embarrassment arises, small and sharp. The immediate instinct is to clench. The face flushes. The chest tightens. The mind begins to narrate, to explain, to defend. All of this is the fist closing. And the embarrassment, which might have passed in seconds, now has a structure to live inside. It has your resistance to feed on. The practice is not to make yourself like the discomfort. It is not to pretend it is pleasant or to talk yourself into acceptance. The practice is much simpler and much harder. Notice where the body tightens when something unpleasant arises and soften that place. This is specific. This is physical. When the irritation comes, when the worry lands, when the shame flickers through, do not go to the story. Go to the body. Find the place that is clenched. It might be the throat, it might be the space between the shoulder blades, it might be the belly or the hands or the muscles around the eyes. Just find it. Then soften. Not by forcing relaxation, but by letting the breath move into that tight place. By letting your attention rest there without trying to fix it. The softening is not a doing. It is more like a allowing. You stop adding tension to tension. You stop feeding the tension. What happens next is not magic, but it can feel surprising. The original discomfort, no longer held in place by resistance, begins to move. It may not disappear, it may not become pleasant, but it shifts. It changes shape. Sometimes it dissolves entirely, the way sand falls away when the fist finally opens. This is how mindfulness changes emotional habits. Not by making you stronger or more controlled, but by showing you where you have been adding unnecessary effort. The habit is old. The body has been clenching for years, maybe decades, around certain feelings. Anger, fear, sadness, loneliness. Each one has its own signature of tension, its own way of making the body hard. But habits are not fixed. They are patterns of response, and patterns can be seen. Once you see where the clenching happens, you have a choice you did not know you had. You can soften. Just once, just in this moment. You do not have to change the feeling itself. You only have to stop tightening around it. The sand slips through when the hand opens. The feeling moves through when the body softens, one contraction at a time. A single raindrop touches your skin and you feel it. Cool, brief, gone. But inside, something else begins. That small sensation becomes a thought. The thought becomes a sentence. The sentence becomes a scene. Before long, you are not feeling the raindrop anymore. You are standing in a flood of your own making, watching the water rise, certain it will not stop. This is how the mind works with emotion. Someone says a few words at breakfast. Their tone is flat. You notice it. That noticing is clean, direct. But then the mind takes over. It asks why. It builds a case. It remembers last week. It predicts tomorrow. The moment is already gone. But the story is just beginning. The Zen teachers say the mind is a storyteller. It does not wait for permission. It does not check the facts. It simply begins to narrate. And most of the time, we do not notice this is happening. We believe we are responding to what happened. But we are actually responding to what we have told ourselves about what happened. There is a difference, a real one. The event itself is brief. The story can last all day. You feel a tightness in your chest during a conversation. That is the event. It lasts a few seconds. But the story says, they do not respect me. The story says, this always happens. The story says, I should have said something different. The story pulls in the past. It pulls in the future. It turns a single raindrop into a flood, and suddenly you are underwater, struggling, even though the original moment has already passed. This is not wrong. It is not a failure. It is simply what minds do. They make meaning. They connect dots. They try to protect you by predicting what comes next. But this protection has a cost. The cost is that you live inside the story instead of inside your life. Mindfulness does not stop the stories. It changes your relationship to them. It shows you the gap between the event and the elaboration. And in that gap, something shifts. When you begin to practice, you start to notice the moment the story begins. You are sitting quietly and a memory surfaces. Before, you would have followed it. You would have lived inside it for 10 minutes, maybe longer. But now you see it start. You feel the first sentence form. And instead of stepping into the narrative, you name it. Story. Thinking. Just those words, silently, without judgment. This is not suppression. You are not pushing the story away. You are simply recognizing it as a story. And then you return to your breath. The inhale. The exhale. The body, here, now. At first this feels small, inconsequential. You name the story and it comes right back. You return to the breath and the mind drifts again. But you are not trying to win, you are just practicing the return. Each time you notice and come back, you are weakening the old habit. The habit that says every story must be believed. The habit that says every narrative must be followed to its end. Over time, the gap becomes more visible. You see it in daily life, not just in meditation. Someone cancels plans. You feel disappointment. That is the raindrop. Then the mind begins. They do not care. I am always the one who gets left out. This will ruin the whole weekend. You can feel the flood building, but now you recognize it. You see the first drop and the imagined deluge, and you know they are not the same thing. You do not have to believe every story the mind tells. This is not about controlling your thoughts. It is about seeing them clearly. When you see a story as a story, it loses some of its grip, not all of it, not right away, but enough that you can breathe, enough that you can choose. The practice is simple. When the narrative starts to spin, you name it. Thinking, story, planning, worrying, whatever word feels true. You say it silently, kindly, the way you might acknowledge a familiar guest at the door. And then you return to breath, to sensation, to the moment that is actually here. This is how emotional habits change, not by force, not by replacement, but by recognition. You see the pattern. You see how a single moment becomes a loop. And in seeing it, you stop feeding it with your full attention. The story may continue, but you are no longer standing in the flood. You are watching the rain. We learn early that softness is dangerous, that if we let someone see where we ache, they will press exactly there. So we build thickness around the heart, layer after layer. We call it strength. We call it resilience. We call it getting through the day. And it does work for a while. The hardness keeps certain pains at bay. It lets us move through a world that often feels too sharp. But slowly, without noticing, we find ourselves alone inside the shell. The very thing we built for protection becomes the wall between us and everything else, between us and others, between us and our own tenderness. This is the paradox. The armor we wear to stay safe is the same armor that keeps love from reaching us. In the Mahayana tradition, there is a teaching that compassion begins when you stop armoring your own heart, not when you become invincible. Not when you no longer feel pain, but when you stop treating your own vulnerability as the enemy. Think of ice. Solid, rigid, unchanging. It holds its shape. It does not yield. And because of that, it cannot move. It cannot adapt. It cannot reach into the crevices of the world. But when ice melts into water, something shifts. The same substance, now capable of flow, capable of meeting the shape of whatever holds it, capable of nourishing what it touches. Your heart is like this. When it is frozen in self-protection, it cannot move toward anything, not toward others and not toward yourself. But when it softens, when it melts even slightly, it begins to flow again. It begins to reach. This does not mean you become weak. Water is not weak. It carves canyons, it sustains life. But it does not do this by being hard. The shift happens in small moments. You feel something painful, a criticism that lands in an old wound, a disappointment that confirms a fear you have carried for years. The instinct is immediate. Tighten. dismiss it, explain it away, build the wall higher. But there is another possibility. You can place a hand on your chest, right over your heart. Feel the warmth of your own palm. And silently, without performance, offer yourself one kind phrase. Not to fix the pain, not to make it go away, just to meet it with something other than rejection. It might be as simple as, "This hurts," or "I see you," or "It's okay to feel this." The words themselves are less important than the tone, the gesture. You are not trying to convince yourself of anything. You are simply touching your own pain with gentleness instead of armor. This is not something you do once and then move on. It is something you return to, again and again. Each time the impulse to harden arises, you have a choice. You can follow the old path, the one that leads to isolation, or you can pause. Place your hand there. Speak softly to the part of you that is hurting. At first, it may feel strange, even false. You may not believe the kind words. That is fine. You are not trying to believe them. You are simply practicing a different response. You are learning that your own pain does not have to be met with coldness. Over time, something shifts. The ice begins to melt. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small thaws, a moment where you do not flinch away from your own sadness, a moment where you let yourself feel lonely without immediately filling the space, a moment where you touch your chest and mean it. This is how compassion begins, not with grand gestures toward others, not with trying to love the whole world, but with this small, quiet act of not abandoning yourself when you are in pain. And as the heart softens, as it becomes water again, it begins to flow. Toward yourself, yes, but also outward. Because a heart that can hold its own pain gently can also hold the pain of others, not by fixing it, not by taking it away, but by being present to it without fear. You do not need to wait until you are healed to do this. You do not need to be strong first. You can place your hand on your chest right now, in the middle of the ache, in the middle of the fear, and offer yourself one kind phrase. Just one. Let it land softly, the way snow lands on water. We believe our emotions are solid. We feel anger and think, "I am angry." We feel sadness and think, "This sadness is mine and it will not leave." We treat what moves through us as if it has taken up residence, as if it has unpacked and settled in. But when you sit quietly and watch a single emotion, something else reveals itself. The emotion you named a moment ago is not the same now. It has shifted. The heat has cooled slightly, or the tightness has moved from your chest to your throat. What seemed like one unbroken feeling is actually a series of sensations, each one arriving and dissolving, like waves rising and falling on the surface of water. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. He was not speaking in metaphor. He meant the direct seeing of change as it happens. Not the idea of change, but the felt experience of it. The way a wave forms, crests, and scatters back into the sea, never holding its shape for more than a moment. We suffer because we try to hold what cannot be held. We grip an emotion as if steadying it will make it manageable. But the gripping itself creates tension. The emotion moves, and we tighten around it. It shifts again, and we follow it, insisting it stay the same long enough for us to understand it, to solve it, to make it go away. This is where the struggle lives, not in the emotion itself, but in our belief that it should be otherwise. You can test this directly. Choose an emotion that is present right now. It does not need to be large or dramatic. Restlessness will do. A low hum of irritation. A faint sadness with no clear cause. Sit with it for 5 minutes and track every shift, however small. Do not try to change it. Do not push it away or pull it closer. Just notice. At first it may seem static. You might think, this is just irritation, and it feels the same as it did 10 seconds ago. But if you stay, you will begin to see the texture. The irritation might sharpen for a moment, then soften. It might move from your jaw to your shoulders. A thought might arise. Why am I feeling this? And the irritation briefly intensifies, then fades as the thought passes. You are not looking for big changes. You are looking for the truth that nothing holds still. This is not analysis. You are not asking why the emotion is here or what it means. You are simply watching it the way you would watch water. A wave rises and you see it rise. It falls and you see it fall. You do not wonder why the wave appeared. You do not try to flatten the water. You let it move and you see that it is always moving. The habit we are undoing is ancient. We have spent years treating emotions as facts, as permanent conditions. When anxiety arrives, we think, I am anxious, and this is how I am now. When joy appears, we think, I must hold on to this, or I will lose it. Both responses come from the same misunderstanding. We see the wave and think it is the ocean. We see one moment of feeling and think it defines us. But when you track an emotion for 5 minutes, you see something the habit cannot explain. The emotion you named at the start is not the emotion you are feeling now. It has changed. Not because you made it change, but because change is what it does. This is not a technique you perform on the emotion. It is a fact you witness. And in that witnessing, something loosens. Not because you have solved the emotion or made it go away, but because you have seen it clearly. You have seen that it moves, that it is not as solid as it seemed, that the wave rises and falls and the ocean remains, and you are not the wave. The practice is simple. Sit. Choose one emotion. Watch it for 5 minutes. Notice every shift, the tightening and the loosening, the rising and the fading. The way a thought touches it and it flares, then settles. You are not looking for relief. You are looking for truth, and the truth is that the emotion is already changing whether you notice it or not. When you see one emotion change without your effort, you have touched impermanence directly, not as an idea, but as lived experience. The wave has risen and fallen, and you have seen it happen. This is where the habit begins to release. Not all at once, but quietly, in the space where you stop insisting that what moves should stay still. There is a moment, usually brief, when a feeling first arrives. You might notice heat in the chest, tightness in the throat, a sudden pull of attention. And then, almost instantly, something else happens. The mind says, I am angry, or I am afraid. The feeling and the sense of self collapse into one thing. You become the emotion. The space disappears. This is not a mistake you are making. It is an old habit, woven through years of repetition. The mind has learned to identify with what it feels. It takes the passing weather of emotion and calls it the sky. But the sky is not the weather passing through it. The sky remains whether there are clouds or clear light. And you are not the anger. You are the one who knows anger is present. This distinction is not philosophical. It is something you can observe directly, in the body, in real time. When anger arises, there is a sensation. There is heat, tension, maybe a clenching in the jaw. These are physical events. They happen in the body, and there is also awareness. Something in you notices the heat, registers the tension. That noticing is not the same as the heat. It is the space in which the heat appears. But the habit is strong. The mind moves so quickly that it skips over the space. It goes straight from sensation to story. I am angry because they did this. I am afraid because that might happen. The emotion becomes a solid thing, and you become fused with it. The weather fills the entire sky. The teaching here is simple, though not always easy to remember. You are not what arises, you are what knows. When fear appears, you are not fear. You are the awareness that registers fear. When sadness moves through, you are not sadness. You are the quiet knowing that sadness is here. This is not a trick of language. It is a shift in where you stand. The practice that supports this shift is equally simple. When a feeling arises, you name it. Not as identity, but as event. You say silently, "This is anger," not "I am angry." You say, "This is fear," not "I am afraid." The difference is small in words, but large in experience. One version collapses you into the feeling. The other creates a gap, a breath of space between the awareness and the content. You might try this the next time something strong appears. Let's say frustration. You feel it building, maybe in response to something that didn't go the way you wanted. The chest tightens, the thoughts start to loop. And instead of following the usual path, you pause. You place your attention on the sensation itself. You feel the heat, the pressure, and then, quietly, you name it. This is frustration. You are not trying to push it away. You are not trying to fix it. You are simply naming what is present, as if you were naming the weather. This is rain. This is wind. What happens in that naming is subtle but real. The identification loosens. The emotion is still there. The frustration has not disappeared. But you are no longer entirely inside it. There is you, and there is the frustration, and there is a small gap between them. The sky is not the weather passing through it. The awareness is not the emotion moving through awareness. This gap is not emptiness. It is not cold or distant. It is simply space. And in that space, something becomes possible that was not possible before. You can feel the frustration fully, without being consumed by it. You can let it move, shift, change shape. You can notice when it intensifies and when it fades. You are not fighting it, and you are not feeding it. You are holding it the way the sky holds weather. Over time, with repetition, this practice begins to change the emotional habit itself. The feelings still come. They do not stop. But the automatic fusion weakens. The mind learns that it does not have to become what it feels. It can know anger without being anger. It can know fear without collapsing into fear. The weather still moves through, but the sky remains. This is the insight of non-self, not as doctrine, but as direct experience. You are not a fixed thing that emotions happen to. You are the open space in which emotions appear and pass. And when you rest in that space, even for a moment, the grip loosens. The story quiets. What remains is simpler. There is sensation, there is knowing, and there is room for both. You notice sadness arriving and immediately begin asking why. You feel frustration building and start planning how to dissolve it. Anger surfaces and you either push it away or justify it with the story. This is the pattern most of us learned early. An emotion appears and we treat it like a problem that needs solving. But emotions are not problems, they are weather passing through. When you sit beside a river, you do not try to change its course. You watch the water move. You notice how it catches light, how it sounds against stone, how it carries leaves and small sticks downstream. The river does not ask for your opinion, it simply flows. And in watching without interference, something in you settles. The same is true with what moves through your chest and belly. Sadness arrives with its particular weight. Anxiety hums with its specific frequency. Joy rises and fades. Each one is just water moving. But we have been taught to grab at some currents and dam up others. We think this is what it means to be responsible, to be healthy, to be in control. The flower does not try to bloom, it simply opens when conditions are right. It does not rehearse opening or worry whether it is blooming correctly. The bud sits in darkness, held by what it does not yet know. Then light and warmth arrive, and the petals unfold without effort. There is no forcing, no self-improvement plan. just response to conditions. Your emotional life works this way too. Feelings arise from conditions. They change when conditions change. But we have learned to stand between the feeling and its natural movement. We analyze, we fix, we improve. We tell ourselves we should not feel this way, or we build elaborate reasons why we must. All of this is exhausting. What if you could sit beside the river of your own feeling without trying to redirect it? Not forever. Not as a life philosophy. Just for 2 minutes. Just once, with one difficult emotion. This is not about acceptance in the sense of resignation. It is not about liking what you feel. It is simply about being present with what is already here. The feeling is already moving through you. The question is whether you will meet it or spend your energy trying to manage it. Choose one feeling that has been visiting lately. Perhaps it is the low hum of worry that wakes with you in the morning. Perhaps it is the tightness of irritation that arrives in certain conversations. Perhaps it is the heaviness that settles in your chest on quiet evenings. Choose something real but not overwhelming. You are learning to sit by the river, not to dive into rapids. Set a timer for 2 minutes. Sit somewhere you will not be interrupted. Close your eyes if that feels steady, or keep them soft and lowered if that feels safer. Bring your attention to where you feel this emotion in your body. Not the story of why it is there, not the history or the future implications, just the sensation itself. Is there tightness, heaviness, heat, fluttering, pressure? Let your attention rest there, the way you would rest your gaze on moving water. The mind will want to solve this. It will offer explanations, solutions, distractions. This is not wrong. This is just what minds do. Notice when this happens. Then return your attention to the sensation itself, the actual feeling in your actual body right now. You are not trying to make the feeling go away. You are not trying to make it stronger or understand it better. You are simply sitting beside it. The river flows. You watch. That is all. If the sensation shifts, notice that. If it intensifies, notice that. If it fades, notice that. You are not controlling the current, you are present with it. There is a difference. 2 minutes is not long. But 2 minutes of actual presence with a difficult feeling, without agenda, is rarer than you might think. Most of us have never done this. We have spent decades trying to fix, avoid, or justify our emotional life. We have never simply sat down beside it and let it be what it is. When the timer sounds, open your eyes slowly. Notice what remains. Notice what has shifted. You do not need to draw conclusions. You do not need to make this mean something. You simply practice being present with your own experience without trying to change it. The flower does not try to bloom, but it does open. And in opening, it reveals what was already forming in the dark. Your feelings are like this too. They carry information. They respond to conditions. And when you stop trying to manage them, they can move the way they need to move. You have just sat beside the river for 2 minutes. That is enough. That is the practice. There is a place in the body where every emotion announces itself before the mind has named it. A tightness, a warmth, a pulling inward or a pushing out. And if you watch closely, you will see that the mind does not simply feel these sensations. It reaches for them or turns away. It says yes or no before the feeling has finished arriving. This reaching and turning is older than thought. A tree in wind does not decide whether to bend. It bends. But we are not quite like trees. We add a second movement. We lean into what feels pleasant, trying to hold it in place. We brace against what feels unpleasant, hoping it will leave faster. And so we are always slightly off balance, swaying not with the wind, but against it. The teaching says, neither grasping nor rejecting, the mind finds its natural ease. This is not a command, it is an observation. When you stop pulling and pushing, something settles. not because you have achieved anything, but because you have stopped interfering. You can test this in small ways. Sit quietly and notice what arises. Perhaps there is restlessness in the legs. The habit is immediate. The mind says, "This should not be here." It tenses around the sensation, trying to squeeze it out. Or perhaps there is a moment of calm, and the mind says, "Yes, this is it, stay." It grips the calm like a fist closing around water. Neither of these movements brings rest. The restlessness does not leave because you reject it. The calm does not stay because you cling to it. Both pass in their own time. But the reaching and the turning, these create a second layer of suffering, a fiction that outlasts the feeling itself. A tree that bends in wind does not break or run away. It allows the pressure to move through. When the wind passes, the tree returns. Not because it has practiced returning, but because bending was never a problem to begin with. The problem was only in the mind that said, "This should not be happening." You can begin to work with this by meeting each feeling with a single phrase. Breathe in and let the sensation be exactly as it is. Breathe out and say silently, "This too," not as affirmation, not as acceptance in the sense of approval, simply as acknowledgement. This too is here. This too is passing through. The phrase does not push the feeling away. It does not pull it closer. It makes a small space around the experience, enough room for the sensation to exist without the mind collapsing into it or running from it. You are not trying to feel better. You are learning to feel without the second movement, the one that says, "This must change now." If sadness comes, breathe with it. This too. If joy comes, breathe with it. This too. If numbness comes, or irritation, or longing, the practice is the same. You are not flattening everything into sameness. You are noticing that every feeling, no matter its texture, moves through the same space. And that space does not need to defend itself. This is where emotional habits begin to shift. Not because you have replaced a bad habit with a good one, but because you have seen the habit itself, the reaching, the turning, the constant adjustment. When you stop feeding that movement, it loses its momentum, not all at once. But over time, the mind begins to rest more naturally in the middle, like a tree standing in still air. The middle is not dullness, it is not indifference. It is a place where you can feel fully without being owned by the feeling. A tree in wind is not indifferent to the wind, it bends, but it does not become the wind, it does not forget it is a tree. You might notice this first in small moments. A flash of anger that does not hook you. A wave of anxiety that rises and falls without pulling you under. You are still feeling everything. But you are not adding the second layer, the story that says, "I must fix this, I must keep this, I must be different than I am." This too. Breathe out and let the words carry nothing but acknowledgement. You are here. The feeling is here. Neither needs to win. There is a stream that runs behind the monastery where I sometimes sit. In spring, the water moves fast and loud. By summer, it slows. But whether the season brings flood or trickle, the water follows the same groove it has carved into the stone over centuries. The path is deep now. The water does not choose it consciously. It simply flows where the stone has learned to receive it. Your emotional habits work this way too. Anger finds its familiar channel. Anxiety knows exactly where to pull. These responses are not who you are. They are paths worn smooth by repetition. The mind returns to them because they are easy, because the stone has already been shaped. But stone can be shaped again. The Buddha once said that drop by drop the pot is filled. Little by little, the wise one becomes full of good. He was not speaking about grand transformations or sudden awakenings. He was pointing to something quieter, something that happens beneath the drama of effort and striving. He was describing the way water works. When you try to force an old pattern to stop, you meet it with the same energy that created it. You clench against the clenching. You worry about the worrying. This does not carve a new channel. It only deepens the old one. Force is still the same water, rushing down the same groove. What changes the stone is not force, it is direction, and repetition, and time. Mindfulness does not fight the old path, it walks beside it. Each time you notice an old reaction rising, you are standing at a fork. The familiar channel is right there, worn deep and easy. But there is also bare stone beside it, untouched, waiting. The practice is simple. When you feel the old pattern begin, pause, not to stop it, not to shame it, just to notice it, to say quietly, this is anger, or this is fear, or this is the need to be right. And then, in that small gap of awareness, choose one small different response. Not a perfect response, not a healed response, just different. Maybe you take one breath before you speak. Maybe you feel your feet on the ground. Maybe you let the other person finish their sentence. These are not grand gestures. They are drops of water, landing 1 inch to the left of the old groove. One drop does not change stone. You will not feel transformation in the moment. The old channel is still there, still deep, still easy. The water will return to it many times. This is not failure. This is just the way stone learns. But if you pause again tomorrow, and again the day after, something begins. The water touches bare stone, then touches it again. The repetition is so quiet you might not notice, but the stone notices. Slowly, slowly, a new groove begins to form. This is not about becoming a different person. It is about giving the water a different place to go. The anger does not disappear. The anxiety does not vanish. But they begin to move through you differently. They find a path that does not carve so deep, that does not pull you under. You might feel impatient with this. The old channel is so familiar. The new path feels awkward and slow. You want the transformation now. You want the stone to remember what you decided this morning. But stone does not work on the schedule of wanting. It works on the schedule of water. Each time you pause, each time you choose that one small different response, you are not fixing yourself. You are not earning your way to peace. You are simply redirecting the flow. The mind begins to learn that there is more than one way to move, that the old groove is not the only groove. And here is what happens over time. The new channel deepens, not because you forced it, not because you were perfect, but because you returned to it again and again, drop by drop. The old path does not disappear, it remains in the stone, but it is no longer the only path, and when the water comes, it has a choice now. Sometimes it still finds the old groove, but more and more it follows the new one, not because it should, but because the stone has learned to receive it there. This is how mindfulness changes emotional habits. Not by declaring war on the old patterns, not by shaming yourself for returning to them, but by walking a different path again and again until the stone remembers. The work of changing emotional habits is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with fanfare or sudden revelation. It happens in the small moments, the ordinary ones, the times when you notice the tightness in your chest before you speak, or when you pause just long enough to feel the heat of anger without immediately acting on it. These moments accumulate quietly, like rain soaking into soil. You will forget, you will return to old patterns. This is not failure. The mind has worn grooves into itself over years, over decades, and it moves along those grooves naturally, effortlessly. When you find yourself in familiar reactivity, when you notice you have been caught in the same emotional loop again, this noticing itself is the practice. The moment you see it, something has already shifted. Mindfulness does not erase the emotions themselves. Fear still arises, sadness still moves through. Irritation still flickers at the edges of your day, but the relationship changes. Where once there was immediate identification, now there can be a breath of space. Where once there was only the emotion and nothing else, now there is the emotion and the awareness of it. And that awareness is vast enough to hold what arises without being consumed by it. This awareness grows slowly. Some days it feels strong and clear. Other days it seems to vanish entirely, and you wonder if you have learned anything at all. Both experiences are temporary. Both are just weather moving through. The practice is not about maintaining a particular state. It is about meeting whatever state appears with a quality of gentle recognition. The tenderness in this work matters. When you see yourself falling into an old habit, the instinct may be to judge, to criticize, to demand better. But harshness only creates more tension, more resistance. The emotional habit tightens further when met with force. What loosens it is a softer touch. You can notice the pattern and still hold yourself kindly. You can see clearly and still be gentle. Impermanence runs through all of this. The emotion that feels overwhelming right now will change. The habit that seems permanent is not. Even the sense of self that identifies so strongly with these patterns is shifting moment by moment. Nothing is fixed. This truth is not meant to create anxiety. It is an invitation to rest. If nothing is permanent, then nothing needs to be gripped so tightly. You do not need to perfect this. You do not need to reach some final state where emotions no longer challenge you. The practice continues. It continues tomorrow and the day after. It continues in the moments when you remember and in the moments when you forget. Each time you return to awareness, each time you meet an emotion without immediately reacting, you are participating in something ancient and simple. You are training the mind in a different way of being. There will be times when the old habits feel stronger than the practice, when anger flares and you speak harshly before you even realize what is happening, when anxiety spirals and you are caught in it completely. These moments are not evidence that mindfulness does not work. They are part of the process. You see them more clearly now. You feel them more fully. And gradually, even in the midst of them, a small part of you remains aware, watching, not lost entirely. This is enough. This small awareness is the seed of change. It does not need to be forced into bloom. It grows at its own pace, in its own time. Your part is simply to continue, to sit again, to breathe again, to notice again. The rest unfolds naturally. If you find this way of exploring useful, there are other reflections here that move in a similar rhythm. No urgency. Just an invitation to continue listening, to let these ideas settle in their own time. But whether you stay or go, the practice remains the same. It is always here, waiting for you to return. The breath is still moving, the body is still present. Awareness is still available. Everything you need is already here.